Yes.
Và sau đây là thông điệp của sư cô Thiên Tuệ. Xin mời sư cô Thiên Tuệ thông điệp. The following is the translation into English, and we would like to invite Sayule Aramata Meda, right, to translate for us right now. Thank you.
Thank you, host. Today is Monday, December 7, 2020. The Dharma talk at 8:30 a.m. Let's start by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. The first time, the second time, and the third time. That is the procedures for taking refuge. And now we will start with taking the precept. The first precept is trying to abstain from taking life. The second precept is trying to abstain from taking what is not given. The third precept is trying to abstain from sexual practices. The fourth precept is trying to abstain from false speeches. The fifth precept is trying to abstain from taking intoxicants that can cause carelessness and forgetfulness. The sixth precept is trying to abstain from eating at the wrong time, mainly from noon until dawn the next day. The seventh precept is trying to abstain from dancing, singing, listening to music, watching show, wearing garlands, perfume, ointments, etc. And the eighth precept is trying to abstain from staying or lying on high and luxurious beds or seats. That is the procedures for taking the precept. We will move on to the Dharma talk. So Tai Chi started the Dharma talk with saying that the Buddhas mean the one who's awakened or the enlightened one, awakened one. What is it that he's realized or what is it that he's realized or attained it? He's realized the Four Noble Truths. And when the Buddha realized the Four Noble Truths, not only he did it for himself, he was be able to teach us these Four Noble Truths. And for that, his follower, when we practice the Dharma, his teaching, we will be able to see and realize the Four Noble Truths the same way the Buddha did. So we will be able to be enlightened just the same way the Buddha did. So we remember that we follow the teachings of the Buddha or we practice the Dhamma. Buddhism is the path or the way towards liberation, the ultimate liberation, the ends of all suffering. So for many of us, we spend many years looking for or searching for the truth, but we don't know what is the truth, what is the ultimate truth, what is the conceptual truth. The Four Noble Truths that the Buddha taught, they actually stay within us. We stay within our body, we stay within our mind. But because we keep looking outside, we do not know that. And because we keep looking outside, we do not see it. And for not seeing, for not knowing, we keep on wandering around the cycle of death and rebirth, samsara. So when a person look outside of the triple gem, not taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the person would never be able to realize these Four Noble Truths. And if you don't see or realize this Four Noble Truths, you cannot reach to the ultimate liberations or nibbana. So first of all, before we start the Dhamma talk, we always start with taking refuge in the triple gem. First is taking refuge in the Buddha. Taking refuge in the Buddha does mean that we direct our mind towards the Buddha to remember the virtues of the Buddha and to go there for refuge. And then taking refuge in the Buddha, then we have to practice his teaching. We have to practice the Dhamma. So first we have to have faith, and when we practice the Dhamma, it's talked about the 3 ways, which is Sila, Samadhis, and Panya. With Sila as a foundation, we will be able to develop our mind. And when our mind is developed and concentrated, Panya, wisdom, will arise. And with this Panya, wisdom, the yogi would be able to see what is the body, what is the mind. And the Buddha taught that seeing what is the body, what is the characteristic, the intrinsic natures of the body, understanding what is the mind, the characteristics of the mind, that is really seeing the Dhamma. But in order for this panya to arise, we have to have concentrations. And what does it mean, the right concentration or samma samadhi? The right concentrations mean no thinking. When the mind is thinking, when the mind wander into the past or wander into the future, the mind is conditioned by defilement. The mind is conditioned by either the past or the future. And at that time, the mind is not concentrated, the mind is weak, and the mind does not know what's going on. So when there is samma samadhi, then the right concentration, there's no thinking right in that mind. And with that, that mind is strong and powerful, and panya would have the chance to arise to show it what is the characteristic of the body as well of the mind. So because many of us do not know how to train our mind, so therefore we kept looking outside to look for this, what am I, or who am I, or what is the cell, what is this human beings made of. And no matter how hard we try, or no matter how hard we look, we cannot find anything, because we kept looking outside. And because we're looking with this defilement mind, looking with the mind which is conditioned by the past of the future. So in the sutta is called the Bhaddekaratta Sutta, and the sutta say that one should not chase after the past, because the past already have gone. One should not have any expectations for the future, because the future have not come yet. And what one should pay attention is what's going on at the present moment. And because the present moment is the only time that one's have. And whatever qualities is present, one clearly see it right here, right there. And with that one will be able to see the truth. So when this mind is conditioned by the past or the futures, or the mind is conditioned by all these unwholesome cetasika mental factors, Sayagyi's mentioned the 4 unwholesome mental factors that always arise in the unwholesome mind or in the defiled mind. First of all is moha, ignorance. Second is ahirika, shamelessness. Third is anottappa, fearlessness. And fourth is uddhacca, restlessness. So when the mind cannot stay calm, when the mind is not concentrated, uddhacca or restlessness is more prominent. The mind keep wandering back and forth, and the mind cannot stay on the object, cannot gain concentration. So therefore, wisdom and as well as the power of concentration cannot arise. So how do we get rid of this restlessness, or how do we get rid of this wandering mind that keep on going in the future or go back to the past? We need sati, mindfulness. And because sati is a mental factor that arises together with the mind, so when sati is there together with the mind, sati will remind the mind to stay at the present moment, to remind the mind not go back to the future, or go forward towards the futures, or go back to the past. And with sati, the simile consider sati is like the foot of the elephant. Sati is very the power of the strength of sati is very powerful and is very big. It's considered like the foot of the elephant. And whatever others mental factors or other activities that are happening in the mind can fall into that. So with sati, would be able to remind the mind to stay at the present moment, and remind the mind to know whatever is going on at the present moment. And Sayagyi's remind us that remember, sati, this kind of remembering what is going on in the body, what's going on in the mind, is actually letting the mind to live in the body, live in the feeling, live in the mind, live in the Dhamma at the present moment. and not knowing or forgetfulness, forget that you are living, forget that you are breathing, forget that there's all these activities happening in the mind. Not knowing that is considered as not living or dead. So when a person have sati, or when satis are there, satis is there in the mind, the person would see that, oh, this is the body and this is the mind. The bodies have their own characteristic and the mind also have their own characteristic. So when the yogi practice vipassana meditation, we trying to direct the mind back into the body at the abdomen, and we try to contemplate the risings and falling of the abdomen. And with sati, we will see that each risings and each falling have its own characteristic, and one after another comes and passes away. And with this is because we will be able to see this is because we have some kind of, we have sati, mindfulness, as well as samadhi, concentration. And this concentration is different from the concentration that a person gained from samatha concentration meditation. This concentration is momentary concentration. This momentary concentration is comes and is passed away along with the knowing mind as well as the object, but it's continuous and is frequent as long as the mind still catching the object, one object after another. And when there is this concentrations are there, this momentary concentrations is there in the mind, then panya, wisdom, will arise. And panya could be considered like the light. The very shining light can shine into all this darkness. And because of this panya, wisdom, the yogi would see, would realize, would understand what is the true characteristic, the intrinsic nature of the body as well as the mind. So for example, breathing in or breathing out, when the yogi pay attention, you will see that for each in-breath or out-breath, the abdomen would fall or rises. And with that, if you be able to be mindful and follow it ardently, wholeheartedly, the yogi will see that there is movement, there is vibration, there is expansion, and all that is the manifestations of the wind characteristic. And that is vibrations, movement, and expansion. And realizing that is realize the intrinsic natures of the ultimate reality within the body. So, and moving on, that is understanding or realizing the intrinsic natures of the one of the four major elements that made up this body. What about the mind? The mind is characteristic is simply knowing the object. So the risings, falling, their vibrations, movements, and expansions. But the knowing mind is job is just knowing. And when the mind is knowing what's going on, when it's rising, what's going on, is falling as well as knowing. There is sitting, there is thinking, if the mind is concentrated or not concentrated. That is the characteristics of the mind, knowing the object. And when the yogi be able to distinguish between the difference between namas and rupa, minds and matters, mental qualities versus rupa, material qualities, then that is called nama rupa paricheda jnana. That means the knowledge or the inside knowledge that's arrived through vipassana meditation, understanding or distinguishing between the difference between nama and rupa, minds and matter. And that is a very, very basic of vipassana meditation as the foundation for the yogi to continue to practice. So when we talked about the practice, we always mentions about sila, the morality as the foundation. Without sila, the person cannot practice meditation, because without sila, the body and speech are not pure. And because the body and speech are not pure, then the mind is very restless. And when there's restlessness in the mind, there will be no concentration. And without concentration, panya cannot arise. So first of all, we take refuge, and the Buddha taught us to take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And when a person take refuge in the Buddha, there is guarantee that person will not go to hell. And when the person take refuge in the Dhamma, the person will not be reborn in the animal kingdom. And when the person take refuge in the Sangha, which is the disciple of the Buddha who already realized the truth the same way the Buddha did, the person would be able to exit out of the 3 realms. So that is the guarantee. But before you can take refuge, you have to have faith. Then you take refuge, and then when you take refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, then you have to follow the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma. And again, the Dharma, the Buddha want you to see or to follow is nothing but understanding or seeing the difference between what is the body, what is the mind, and this intrinsic or characteristic. So Saichi's explain a little bit more when the person seeing the intrinsic natures or paying attention to the natural characteristics of the bodies and mind. This bodies is made out of 4 major elements, and this is earth, water, fire, and wind. And within this body, when the person contemplates, the person will be able to see the 3 major characteristics. So the manifestations of the earth element is lightness or heaviness. The manifestations of the fire element would be heat or coldness. And the manifestations of the wind element would be vibration, extensions, or movement. So when a person on yogi see that, then the yogi see the ultimate reality in that sense. And again, the mind is only knowing the object. So when the yogi open the eyes, there would be knowing happening in the eyes, and then that's knowing is the knowing mind. When knowing the color is the knowing mind, and then when the yogi hears a sound, hearing consciousness and knowing there's hearing happening in the ear, that is the knowing mind. Same thing with tasting, smelling, as well as touching. No matter which posture the yogi is in, either sitting, standing, walking, or lying, there's always touching. Touching is the body would touch the objects of the ground, but knowing there's touching, that is the work of the mind. So when the yogi understand that and see that, that is understanding or seeing the Dharma in the ultimate reality. Sarchi's also, and then Sarchi's mentions about yesterday, the yogi say that, oh dear Bante, I have spent many years practicing Vipassana meditations. And before I realize or understanding or seeing the Dharma, the way in the ultimate reality way, it was so difficult. I do risings, falling. I contemplate risings, falling all the time. And I couldn't see anything. I couldn't understand it. But now when I see it, it's so easy and it's so quick. And no matter how, and because I saw it was so easy, I trying to teach this to my friend. I'm trying to share my knowledge with my friend, but unfortunately they cannot get it. They don't understand. So Sarichi said this kind of wisdom, with this kind of insight, can only arise through your direct experience. No matter how much you're trying to show to other people, they can only understand it in terms of theory, in terms of the doctrine, but in terms of thinking, but they cannot really comprehend it or understand it or realize it by their own experience. And the example Saraji gave was, there was a monk, his name was Jakupala Thera, and this monk, he entered the sasana, the sangha, and he practiced under the teachings, under the guidance of the Buddha. And after 3 months, his brother monk taught him how to recite a gatha. And for 3 months, he could not remember the gatha at all, no matter how hard he tried. And then one time, there was an invitation to go to a household for dana, and the monks was not invited. His brother did not let him go because he's not suitable as a monk, because he did not remember even one gatha. So he felt very unpleasant and very upset and sad. And that night he wanted to leave the sasana. He wanted to go back home because he felt like he joined the sasana, but then his brother did not love him and he could not even remember a gatha, the Buddha teaching. So why stay here and waste time? Just go back home. And he decided to go back home. And at nighttime, he was about to leave, and the Buddha knew all that. So the Buddha saw him walking out of the monastery, and he came and asked him, "Oh monk, where are you going?" And the venerable Jakupala said that, "Oh dear Lord Buddha, I'm going to go back home because I could not practice, I could not remember the gatta, the doctrine, the teaching, your teaching, and my brother did not love me, so there's no point for me to stay here any longer." And the Buddha asked him, "So when you join the sasana, when you become the monk, are you becoming the monk to follow my teaching or follow your brother teaching?" Or, and he say that, "Oh, of course I follow the Lord Buddha teaching." And he say, and the Buddha asked him, "So when you join the Sangha because you want to follow my teaching, are you mad at me? Are you unhappy with me?" And the monk answered, "No, I'm not mad or unhappy with you, Lord Buddha." So he said, and the Buddha said, "Oh, if you're not mad or unhappy with me, why not stay with me? Why go home? Just stay with me. Don't go anywhere." And because of that, the monk was pacified. He was happy and calmed down. And the Buddha gave him a handkerchief, a very clean and white handkerchief. And the Buddha told him that, "Okay, just rub your two fingers along this handkerchief and recite something." I'm sorry, I don't remember what was the recitation, but maybe something like to clean it or something. So for the whole day, starting from that night, for the whole day, the monk keep on holding that handkerchief and rubbing the two hands against this handkerchief. And because it was hot and because it was a lot of rubbing, so the sweat from his palm would come out and would stain the handkerchief. So this very white and clean handkerchief slowly become wrinkled and become dirty and yellow. And upon seeing that, the monks became an arahant and realized the truth and become enlightened, because he saw it is anicca, impermanent, and its dukkha is unsatisfactory and anatta. So he saw it that way. He became an arahant and enlightened. So the next day, when the Buddha went to the household along with other monks for lunch dana, and at the household, when people ask, all the monks are here, and the Buddha turned towards the brothers and asked him, the brother monks, and asked him, all the monks are here at the household. And the brother would say, "Oh dear Lord, no, there's one monk left behind in the monastery. It's my brother Jakupala." And the Buddha told the household to go back to the monasteries and invite Venerable Jakupala at that time. And because now Venerable Jakupala, not only he realized the truth, became an arahant, enlightened, he's also had the psychic power as well as the four analytical knowledge. So he would use his psychic power to make himself like many monks look like him but doing other activities. So when when the servant came to the monastery and looked for the monk, they did not know which one is the real monk. So they came back and asked the Buddha, "Oh dear Lord, there were so many monks at the monastery. I do not know which one is the monk that we're supposed to invite here. They all look the same." And the Buddha said that when you go back to the monastery and when you see the monk, you just call his name. "Oh, please, Venerable Jakupala," and whoever that turn toward you first, then just hold his hands and invite him back. So the servant did what the Buddha told him. And as soon as the monk heard his name, he turns around and replied. And the servant knew this was the monk. The others are just only images. So he invited the monks there. So Sayagyi gave the story just to illustrate the point that it might take us forever or take us for many years to practice vipassana meditation, but we never know when the moment of enlightenment, the moments of realization will come to us. So don't give up trying to practice with mindfulness, with ardent effort, wholeheartedly, and following the objects from each rising and each falling. And because when we already know, it's very easy, and when we see it, it's just very clear right in front of us. But when we don't know, it might take time and it might take a little effort, and it also depends on our conditions as well as our paramis. So that's all I have for today translations. And before Before ending, Sarachi recite the Gatha, and I will do the same. He didn't do the Pali part, so I think I'm just gonna do the English part. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path up to purifications. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path of purifications. All things are not so. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path of purifications. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one thing that Saji mentioned that. So he also mentions the first verse of the Dhammapada, where when a person see your mind and how important it is for a yogi to actually understanding or seeing the mind, because the mind precedes all the phenomena. Mind matter most. Everything is mind made. And with an impure mind, one performs any action of speech or body, then suffering will follow that person. So just like a shadow following a body, when a person commit unwholesome deed, unwholesome consequences would follow. And the Pali that he recited was Mano Pupangamam Dhamma, Mano Sitta Mano Meya, Manasache Padudena, Bawasati Wakaroti wa Tato Nam Dukamanveti Chakam wa Varotadam. So again, the translation is, my precedes all phenomena, my matter most, everything is my made. With an impure mind, one performs any action of speech and body, then suffering would follow that person, as the cart will follow the foot of the draught animal. And that's all I have for today's summary of the translation. Thank you so much for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wish everybody have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you, Sayale, for another wonderful translation, and we'll see you this evening again. Thank you, Sayale. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, host. Goodbye.